The ceremonial hall thrummed with anticipation. Hundreds of wolves in human form packed shoulder to shoulder, their excited whispers creating a suffocating wall of sound. Lyra pressed herself against the cold marble pillar, her fingers gripping the ceremonial dress, white silk that felt more like a burial shroud than a wedding gown. "Stand straight, girl," Mistress Corvina hissed, her iron fingers digging into Lyra's shoulder. "The Shadow Moon Pack paid 3,000 gold marks for you. Don't embarrass me now. 3,000 gold marks. The price of her life, sold by her uncle to pay his gambling debts. She'd become nothing more than merchandise, packaged and delivered to the highest bidder." Through the crowd, Lyra caught sight of him, Theron Shadowmoon, her intended mate. His scarred face split into a cruel smile as their eyes met, and he deliberately ran his tongue over his extended fangs. The wolves around him laughed at the display, knowing exactly what those fangs would do to her throat in mere minutes. The claiming bite was supposed to be an act of love, but in Theron's hands, it would be an act of dominance, of possession. "Please," Lyra whispered to Corvina, "I can't do this. He'll kill me. Everyone knows what happened to his last 3 mates." "Not my concern," Corvina replied coldly. "The contract is signed. Walk forward, or be dragged." The drums began, deep and primal, signaling the start of the bonding ceremony. The crowd parted like a sea, creating a pathway between Lyra and Theron. Her wolf spirit, usually so quiet and dormant, suddenly screamed inside her mind with a ferocity she'd never felt before. "Run, now, or die." Theron stepped forward, his black ceremonial robes making him look like death incarnate. "Come to me, little rabbit," he called out, his voice carrying across the hall. "Let's not make this harder than necessary. You're mine now." Lyra's legs moved without her permission, but not toward him backward. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. To refuse a public bonding was unheard of, a violation of pack law that could result in exile or worse. "Seize her," Theron snarled, his face contorting with rage. 2 guards lunged forward. Lyra's survival instinct exploded. She spun wildly, her eyes searching desperately for any escape. The main doors blocked by more guards, the windows too high to reach, the crowd closing in like wolves cornering prey. Then she saw him, a lone figure leaning against the far wall, separate from the crowd. Dark hair fell across his face, and unlike everyone else, he wasn't watching the spectacle. He was reading a book, seemingly oblivious to the chaos. More importantly, he wore no pack colors, no ceremonial garb, just a simple black traveling cloak. A rogue, an outsider, perfect. Without thinking, without planning, Lyra ran, not away from the guards, but straight toward the stranger. The crowd scattered in confusion as she barreled through them, her white dress billowing behind, her like wings. The stranger looked up just as Lyra crashed into him, her hands grabbing his face. His book fell to the floor as his eyes storm gray with flecks of gold widened in complete shock. "I claim you," Lyra shouted, loud enough for the entire hall to hear. Then, before anyone could react, before she could second-guess herself, she pressed her mouth to his in a desperate kiss. The hall erupted in absolute chaos, but beneath the roar, Lyra heard the stranger's sharp intake of breath, felt his body go rigid with shock. His lips were warm against hers, and for one impossible moment, she tasted something wild on them, pine forests and winter storms, an ancient, primal force that made her wolf spirit sing. The kiss lasted 3 heartbeats. 3 heartbeats that shattered Lyra's entire world and rebuilt it into something else entirely. When she pulled back, gasping for air, the stranger's eyes had changed. The storm gray was now shot through with veins of pure gold, and his expression had shifted from shock to something far more dangerous recognition mixed with disbelief. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice carrying an accent she couldn't place, melodic and old, like something from the ancient tales. Before Lyra could answer, before she could even process what she'd just done, Theron's roar shook the entire hall. You dare claim another at my bonding ceremony?" The stranger moved so fast, Lyra didn't see it happen. One moment she was standing exposed in the middle of the hall, the next she was behind him, his body forming a protective wall between her and the advancing Theron. "The girl has made her choice," the stranger said calmly, though Lyra could feel the tension radiating from him like heat from a forge. "By ancient law, a public claiming cannot be challenged if it precedes the bonding bite." Theron's scarred face contorted with murderous rage. She was bought and paid for. Rogue. Stand aside or I'll tear out your throat myself. Rogue? The stranger tilted his head slightly, and something strange happened. Several wolves in the crowd suddenly dropped to their knees. Others backed away, their faces draining of color. Interesting assumption. Mistress Corvina pushed forward, her ledger clutched in her hands like a shield. This is highly irregular. The contract clearly states. Is void, the stranger interrupted, his voice carrying an edge that made even Corvina step back. Unless you're suggesting the Shadow Moon Pack wishes to violate the primordial laws? The ones that supersede all pack contracts? The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Every wolf present knew the primordial laws, ancient rules that governed their kind. Older than any pack, older than civilization itself. To break them meant death, not just for the individual, but potentially for their entire bloodline. Theron's beta, a massive brute named Kozar, leaned in to whisper urgently in his alpha's ear. Whatever he said made Theron's face go white as bone. You don't know who, Kozar started to say aloud, but Theron silenced him with a vicious snarl. This isn't over, Theron spat, his eyes locked on Lyra with pure hatred. The girl is mine by right of purchase. I'll petition the Council of Alphas. The stranger laughed, soft and dangerous as a blade being drawn. By all means. I'm sure the Council would love to hear how the Shadow Moon Pack traffics in unwilling mates. How you've turned sacred bonds into commodity trades. Lyra felt the stranger's hand find hers, his fingers interlacing with her own. His touch sent electricity racing up her arm, and her wolf spirit, usually so dormant she sometimes forgot it existed, suddenly surged to life, recognizing something in him that made it want to both run and submit simultaneously. We're leaving, he said quietly, just for her ears. Can you walk? Lyra nodded, though her legs felt like water. The stranger turned, keeping her behind him as they moved toward the exit. The crowd parted like a sea before them, some wolves bowing low, others staring in shock or fear. They had almost reached the massive doors when Corvina's shrill voice cut through the tense silence. Wait, the claiming isn't complete without a mark. She hasn't marked you. The stranger stopped. Slowly, deliberately, he turned back to face the crowd, and his smile was sharp as a blade. Hasn't she? He pushed back his dark hair, revealing the side of his neck. There, impossible but undeniable, was a mark, a crescent moon shot through with silver light, glowing faintly against his skin like moonlight on water. The moon's mark, someone whispered in awe. The goddess herself has blessed the claiming. Even Theron stepped back at that, his face twisting with fury and something else, fear. The moon's mark was legend, appearing maybe once in a generation, and only between true mates chosen by the goddess herself. The stranger pulled his hood up, shadows immediately concealing his features. Come, he said to Lyra, his hand tightening around hers. We have a long journey ahead. As they stepped into the cool night air, Lyra's mind reeled with the magnitude of what had just happened. She had grabbed a random stranger to escape a forced bonding, but the appearance of the moon's mark, a sign of divine intervention, meant this was no random choice at all. Behind them, she could hear the hall erupting into chaos, Theron's voice rising above the din, demanding answers, demanding blood. But the stranger kept walking, pulling her toward a black carriage that seemed to materialize from the shadows themselves. Get in, he said, opening the door. Lyra hesitated, her hand on the doorframe. I don't even know your name. Those storm-gray eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw something ancient in them, something that made her wolf want to bare its throat in submission. Kale, he said simply. And you've just made things very complicated for both of us. As the carriage door closed behind them and they rolled into the darkness, Lyra noticed something that made her blood run cold. The inside of the carriage bore a crest embroidered in silver thread, a wolf howling at a crown of stars, the crest of the Nightborn dynasty, the ruling family of all wolf kingdoms. She hadn't just claimed any stranger, she had claimed someone connected to the royal family itself. The carriage rolled through the night in silence, the only sound the rhythmic clatter of wheels on cobblestone. Lyra pressed herself into the corner of the plush seat, as far from Kale as the confined space would allow, her mind racing with the implications of what she'd seen. You're going to hurt yourself if you keep your muscles that tense, Kale observed, not looking up from the book he'd somehow retrieved. In the dim lantern light, she could see it was written in the old language, the script of the first wolves that few could still read. Who are you? Lyra whispered, her voice barely audible above the carriage wheels. "I told you, KL. That's not what I meant, and you know it." She gestured to the crest embroidered on the carriage cushions. "That symbol, only the royal family can use it. So who are you really? It's just a symbol." He turned a page, still not meeting her eyes. "You were quite clever back there, by the way, using a public claiming to void a trafficking contract. Most wolves wouldn't know that particular loophole in primordial law. The woman I called grandmother, she was really my guardian, taught me before she died," Lyra said carefully, accepting his deflection for now. "She said knowledge of the old ways might save my life one day." Wise woman. Kale finally looked up, and in the flickering light, his eyes seemed to glow with their own inner fire, though I doubt she expected you to claim the first random stranger you saw. Heat flooded Lyra's cheeks. "I'm sorry. I know I've created a problem for you. Once we're far enough from the Shadow Moon territory, we can stage a rejection ceremony. Tell everyone the claiming didn't take—" "Look at your wrist." Lyra glanced down and gasped. Where his fingers had touched her skin, delicate silver lines were appearing, swirling patterns that looked like frost on glass. They didn't hurt, but they pulsed with a gentle warmth that matched her heartbeat. "That's impossible," she breathed. "Bond marks only appear between true mates." "Yes." Kale's voice was carefully neutral, "which is why a rejection ceremony won't work. The goddess has decided to have her fun with us, it seems." The carriage suddenly lurched to a stop. Kale's entire demeanor changed in an instant, his body coiling like a spring ready to release. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice carrying a tone of absolute command that made her wolf immediately submit. The door ripped open with enough force to tear it from its hinges. Kozar's brutal face appeared, his fangs fully extended. "Found you, little rabbit. The Alpha wants his property back." "She's not property," Kale said quietly, stepping out of the carriage with fluid grace. "And you've made a grave error following us." More Shadow Moon wolves emerged from the darkness, 10, 12, 15. They formed a circle around the carriage, all in their human forms but ready to shift at a moment's notice. Theron himself stepped forward from the shadows, his scarred face twisted with satisfaction. "Did you really think you could steal from me, rogue? I don't care what ancient laws you quote. That girl cost me 3,000 gold marks, and I intend to collect. Then you wasted your money." Kale pushed back his hood, and in the moonlight, Lyra could see his face properly for the first time. He was younger than she'd thought, perhaps mid-20s, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair that fell in waves to his shoulders. But it was his bearing that struck her, the way he stood like he owned the very ground beneath his feet. "Last chance," Theron growled. "Hand her over, and I might let you live." Kale laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the night. "You know, I was trying to avoid this. I really was. But you followed us beyond the neutral territories." He rolled his shoulders, and Lyra heard the distinct sound of bones beginning to shift. "Which means you're in my domain now." "Your domain?" Theron scoffed. "You're a packless, nobody who—" The transformation happened between one heartbeat and the next. Where Kale had stood, now loomed a wolf unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. Pitch-black fur that seemed to absorb light itself, eyes of pure gold, and massive, easily twice the size of a normal alpha wolf. Power radiated from him in waves that made every wolf present, including Lyra, want to drop to their bellies in submission. But it was what happened next that stopped her heart. Every Shadow Moon wolf dropped to their bellies simultaneously, whimpering in submission. Even Theron, proud and vicious Theron, was on his knees, his face pressed to the ground. "Forgive us," Kozar gasped, his voice shaking with absolute terror. "We didn't know. The report said you were traveling incognito. We never imagined. Forgive us, Your Majesty." "Your Majesty." The words hit Lyra like a physical blow. She stared at the massive black wolf, her mind refusing to process what she was hearing. The Nightborn dynasty had only one wolf who could command such instant submission, whose very presence could bring alphas to their knees. The Alpha King, Kale Nightborn, the Shadow Sovereign who ruled over all 12 wolf kingdoms. And she had claimed him, kissed him, marked him with her desperate, impulsive choice. The massive black wolf shifted back to human form with fluid grace, and Kale stood before them fully clothed, a trick only the most powerful wolves could manage. The Shadow Moon pack remained prostrate on the ground, not daring to even lift their heads. "Rise," Kale commanded, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. But make no mistake, if any of you speak of what happened here tonight, or if you pursue this girl further, I will dissolve the Shadow Moon Pack entirely. Your lands will be redistributed, your name erased from the records. The choice is yours." Theron struggled to his feet, his scarred face pale with fear but still twisted with resentment. "The Council of Alphas will hear about this irregular claiming. You can't just... Can't I?" Kale stepped forward, and Theron immediately stumbled back. "Would you like to explain to the Council how you've been buying unwilling mates? How you've killed 3 women already?" His golden eyes narrowed to slits. "Oh yes, I know about them. Did you think the Crown wasn't watching?" Kozar grabbed Theron's arm before he could speak again. "We're leaving. Now." He bowed deeply to Kale. "By your will, your majesty." The Shadow Moon wolves melted back into the darkness, their retreat so hasty that several of them tripped over each other in their desperation to leave. Within moments, Lyra and Kale were alone on the moonlit road. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken questions and impossible revelations. Finally, Lyra found her voice. "You're the Alpha King," she said, the words barely a whisper. "The Shadow Sovereign, ruler of the 12 kingdoms." "Yes, and I." She looked down at the silver lines still swirling on her wrist, growing more intricate by the hour. "I claimed you. In public." The moon's mark appeared. "Also, yes. This is a disaster." Kale laughed, surprising her. It wasn't the cold, dangerous laugh from before, but something genuinely amused. "You have no idea." He ran a hand through his dark hair. "Do you know what you've done? Really understand it?" Lyra shook her head mutely. "Every unmated noble family in the 12 kingdoms has been trying to match their daughters with me for years. Political alliances worth millions of gold marks. Treaties that could prevent wars." He gestured to her. "And now, a nobody, no offense, has publicly claimed me with the goddess's own blessing. The court is going to lose their collective minds." "I'm sorry," Lyra whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "I didn't know. I just needed to escape, and you were there, and—" "Stop." His voice gentled. "I'm not angry. Frustrated at the complications? Yes, but not angry." He studied her with those storm-gray eyes. "You were brave. Desperate, but brave. Most wolves would have accepted their fate, rather than risk invoking primordial law. My guardian always said I was too impulsive for my own good. Tell me about her, and tell me, what bloodline are you truly from?" "No bloodline. My parents were farmers. They died when I was young in a fire. My uncle took me in, and when he couldn't pay his gambling debts." She shrugged, trying to seem unaffected by her own story. Kale frowned deeply. "Farmers don't produce wolves who can make the moon's mark appear. And that mark on your shoulder, may I see it?" "What? Mark?" "The birthmark, shaped like a crescent moon." Lyra's hand flew instinctively to her shoulder. "How did you can't see it through my dress. I can sense it. It's calling to me, like recognizing, like..." His voice had gone rough. "Please." With trembling fingers, Lyra pulled aside the collar of her dress just enough to reveal the birthmark she'd had all her life. Kale inhaled sharply. "That's not a birthmark," he said quietly. "That's a seal. A very old, very powerful seal meant to hide something extraordinary." Before Lyra could ask what he meant, a howl split the night air. Then another, and another. But these weren't Shadow Moon wolves. The sound was different, older, wilder. "Get in the carriage," Kale ordered, his body tensing. "What is it?" "Ferals. Wolves who've lost themselves to the beast." He pushed her toward the door. "They hunt in packs, and they're drawn to power. The confrontation with Theron must have attracted them. The howls were getting closer." Lyra could see shapes moving in the forest, eyes glowing red in the darkness, nothing like the gold or silver of normal wolves. "Can't you command them like you did the Shadow Moon Pack?" "Ferals don't recognize authority. They only recognize strength." Kale's bones began to crack and reshape. "Stay in the carriage no matter what you hear." But as he started to transform, something extraordinary happened. The silver lines on Lyra's wrist suddenly blazed with light, and pain white-hot and overwhelming shot through her entire body. She screamed, falling to her knees. Her bones felt like they were breaking, reshaping, but wrong, all wrong. This wasn't a normal shift. Her wolf spirit was trying to emerge, but something was fighting it, holding it back. "Lyra!" Kale was beside her instantly, his transformation halted. What's happening? I don't know. She gasped through the pain. I can't shift. I've never been able to shift. The ferals burst from the tree line, 5 of them, massive and twisted, their forms caught somewhere between wolf and beast. They saw Lyra writhing on the ground and Kale crouched beside her, and they attacked. Kale moved like lightning, shifting mid-leap to meet them. But he was outnumbered, and his attention was divided between fighting and protecting Lyra. A feral broke through his defense, lunging straight for Lyra with jaws wide. She threw up her hands instinctively, and moonlight flames erupted from her palms. The feral disintegrated into ash before it could touch her. Everything stopped. The remaining ferals backed away, whimpering. Kale stared at her in shock, and Lyra looked at her hands, where silver flames still danced along her fingers, beautiful and terrible. That's impossible, Kale breathed. That's moonfire. Only the royal bloodline of the extinct Silver Moon Kingdom could. The seal on Lyra's shoulder suddenly cracked with an audible snap. Power, ancient and wild, flooded through her. Memories that weren't her own flashed through her mind, a castle of silver and starlight, wolves bowing before a throne, a woman with Lyra's face wearing a crown of moonstone. I remember, she gasped. My guardian, the woman I called grandmother. She wasn't my grandmother. She was my protector. She hid me. The Silver Moon Kingdom didn't just fall, it was destroyed. Every royal killed except the infant princess. Kale finished, his voice full of awe. The lost heir of the Silver Moon. The lords have been searching for you for 20 years. They had taken shelter in one of Kale's safe houses, a modest hunting lodge deep in the Thornwood forest. He'd insisted they couldn't return to the palace yet, not until they understood what was happening to her. Lyra sat by the fire, staring at her hands where lunar fire had manifested just hours ago. 20 years of being nobody, and now I'm supposedly royalty from a murdered kingdom. Your guardian protected you well, Kale said gently, pressing a cup of tea into her shaking hands. The Silver Moon massacre was brutal. King Aldrich ordered every royal killed, even the children. Your guardian must have been incredibly powerful to hide you with a seal that strong. Why? Lyra asked, looking up at him. Why would anyone massacre an entire royal line? Kale's expression darkened. The Luna prophecy. It spoke of a union between shadow and silver that would either destroy or unite all wolf kingdoms. Aldrich believed if he eliminated the Silver Moon line, he could prevent the prophecy entirely. But he failed. I survived. Yes. And now you've claimed me the Shadow Sovereign with the goddess's own blessing. Kale's eyes met hers. Shadow and silver, united. The very thing Aldrich tried to prevent. A howl echoed outside, too close for comfort. Kale was on his feet instantly, every muscle tense. That's not ferals, he said quietly. Someone's found us. The door exploded inward with tremendous force. Wolves poured in, not wild ferals, but disciplined soldiers wearing the crimson mark of the royal guard. But these weren't Kale's guards. Well, a familiar voice drawled. A man stepped through the ruined doorway, tall and lean with silver hair despite his young face. My dear brother, playing house with a mysterious girl when the council is in uproar. Damon, Kale growled. What are you doing here? The Council of Alphas sent me. Damon's ice, blue eyes fixed on Lyra with predatory interest. They're quite upset about your irregular claiming. They want the girl brought before them immediately. She goes nowhere without me. Actually, Damon smiled coldly. The council was very specific. The girl comes alone, or she's declared a criminal who used forbidden magic to enslave the Alpha King. That's ridiculous. Is it? Damon gestured to Lyra's wrists, where the silver marks still swirled. She bears marks that shouldn't exist. Witnesses say the moon's mark appeared without a proper claiming bite. Some are calling it witchcraft. Lyra stood, her fear replaced by rising anger. I didn't enslave anyone. Prove it. Damon's smile widened. Come with us. Face the council. Unless, of course, you have something to hide. She's not going anywhere with you. Kale stepped between them. Brother, really? You're going to fight your own royal guard? Over some farmer's niece? Damon sked. What would father think? Father's dead, Kale said flatly. I'm king now. A king who's been compromised by an unknown girl's magic. The council has the right to investigate. Lyra saw more guards surrounding the lodge through the windows. They were outnumbered 20 to 1, Even Kale couldn't fight them all without bloodshed. "I'll go," she said quietly. "Lyra, no." She touched Kael's arm, and the bond marks flared with warmth. Through their growing connection, she could feel his fear for her, his rage at being cornered. "Trust me," she whispered. "My guardian taught me more than just the old laws. I can handle the council." Kale's jaw clenched, but he stepped aside. "If anything happens to her, you'll what? Start a civil war?" Damon laughed. "You always were too emotional, brother." He gestured to his guards. "Bind her." "That's not necessary," Kale started. "Council's orders." Silver shackles clicked around Lyra's wrists, and immediately, her connection to the moonfire dimmed. Insurance against any more. Unexpected magic. As they led her away, Lyra looked back at Kale. His eyes had gone full gold, his control hanging by a thread. Through their bond, she felt his rage, his fear, and underneath it all, something else, a desperate need to protect her that went beyond logic or reason. "Kale," Damon called back casually. "The council wants you at the palace. Best behavior, brother. Your little mate's life depends on it." The Council of Alphas met in the ancient lunar sanctum, a circular chamber with a domed ceiling painted to match the night sky. 12 thrones arranged in a circle, each representing one of the wolf kingdoms. But only 11 were occupied. The 12th, the Silver Moon throne, had sat empty for 20 years. Lyra, the unclaimed, the eldest Alpha, spoke, a woman with steel-gray hair and sharp amber eyes. "You stand accused of using forbidden magic to enslave our king." "I use no magic," Lyra replied steadily, though the silver shackles chafed her wrists. "I invoked primordial law to escape an illegal trafficking arrangement." Yet the moon's mark appeared without a proper claiming bite, another Alpha interjected. "Explain that." "I cannot explain the goddess's will." "Convenient," Damon drawled from his position beside the empty throne. "Perhaps a truth serum would help loosen your tongue." "That's illegal," Lyra said sharply. Article 7 of the Reformed Codes. "You know our laws very well for a farmer's niece," the elder Alpha observed. "Tell me, child, who were your parents really?" Before Lyra could answer, the temperature in the room plummeted. Frost spread across the windows in spiraling patterns, and the silver shackles on her wrists began to glow with inner light. "What's happening?" someone demanded. The shackles shattered like ice. Power erupted from Lyra, not the controlled moonfire from before, but something wild and primal. The empty silver moon throne began to glow, its ancient magic responding to her presence. Memories flooded through her again, clearer this time. She saw her parents' faces, felt her mother's last desperate spell to hide her, heard her father's dying words, "Keep her safe. When she comes of age, the throne will recognize her." "Impossible," the elder Alpha breathed. Lyra rose, pulled by invisible strings toward the empty throne. The moment she touched it, light exploded through the chamber. When it faded, she stood before them, transformed, her simple dress replaced by robes of silver starlight, a circlet of moonstone materializing on her brow. "I am Lyra Silvermoon," she said, her voice carrying new power. "Last heir of the Silver Moon Kingdom, and I have every right to claim whoever I choose." The council erupted in chaos, some dropping to their knees in recognition of the ancient bloodline, others shouting about impossibilities and trickery, but Lyra heard none of it. The moment the crown touched her head, she was elsewhere. She stood in a vast hallway of silver and starlight, exactly as she'd seen in her fractured memories. But this time, she wasn't alone. "Hello, little moon," a woman's voice said softly. Lyra turned to find a figure in flowing robes, her face hidden by a hood of silver silk. But she recognized the voice that had sung her lullabies in dreams she'd forgotten. "Mother?" "An echo," the figure replied. "A memory preserved in the throne's magic, waiting for you to claim your birthright." The hood fell back, revealing a face that was Lyra's own, 20 years older. "We have little time. The awakening of your powers has attracted attention from things better left sleeping. I don't understand any of this. The Silver Moon line carries the blood of the first wolves, beings of pure magic, who walked between worlds." Her mother's echo moved closer. "That's why Aldrich feared us. We could see the threads of fate, alter the course of destiny itself. And you, my daughter, are the strongest our line has ever produced. But I've never shown any power before. Because I sealed it. Every drop of magic, every hint of your heritage, bound within that mark on your shoulder. The echo touched Lyra's face gently. I'm sorry for the life of hiding you've had to live. But now the seal is broken, and you must learn quickly. Learn what? That the massacre wasn't Aldrich's idea. Her mother's expression darkened. Something else whispered in his ear, promised him power if he eliminated our line. Something that feeds on the division between wolf kingdoms, that grows stronger from chaos and hatred. It dwells in the realm between realms, and it's been sleeping since our fall. But your awakening and your bond with the Shadow King has stirred it. The vision began to fracture. Mother, wait. Trust the Shadow Wolf. Her mother's voice echoed as the dream dissolved. But beware the one who smiles with silver eyes. The prophecy unfolds, and you must choose unite the kingdoms or watch them fall to ancient hunger. Lyra gasped, finding herself back in the council chamber. Only seconds had passed in reality, but everything had changed. Chaol stood in the doorway, his entire body radiating lethal fury. Behind him, his true royal guard filled the entrance. Release her, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of mountains. She's been confirmed as the Silver Moon heir, the elder Alpha said carefully. The throne recognized her. We have no grounds to hold her. Then why? Chaol's eyes flashed gold. Are Daemon's guards still surrounding her with weapons drawn? Lyra looked around, realizing that while some alphas had acknowledged her, Daemon's crimson-marked guards had formed a circle around her, silver weapons gleaming. Just a precaution, brother, Daemon said smoothly. After all, if she truly is the lost heir, she's incredibly valuable. We wouldn't want anyone trying to steal her away. Or, Chaol moved into the room with predatory grace. You're trying to control her before she learns what she's capable of. Something was wrong with Daemon when Lyra looked at him with her newly awakened senses. Shadows clung to him that weren't natural, writhing beneath his skin like living things. Stand down, Daemon, Chaol ordered. Make me, brother. You want to know what I'm capable of. Lyra stood, power radiating from her. The silver crown on her head pulsed with light. Why don't you tell the council what's whispering in your dreams, Lord Daemon? What promises has it made you? Daemon went rigid. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Lyra stepped closer, and frost spread from her footsteps. Then you won't mind if I look? She raised her hand, silver flames dancing between her fingers. Daemon snarled and lunged not at her, but at Chaol, moving with inhuman speed. The brothers collided with tremendous force, Daemon's hands going for Chaol's throat. But the moment they touched, Lyra's bond with Chaol flared to life. She felt his shock as Daemon's fingers burned with unnatural cold, saw through his eyes the wrongness in his brother's face, black veins spreading beneath the skin, eyes flickering between ice blue and pitch black. He's possessed, Lyra breathed. The thing wearing Daemon's face laughed. Clever little moon princess. Too bad you woke too late. It threw Chaol across the room with impossible strength, then turned to Lyra. 20 years I've waited, feeding on this fool's ambition, preparing for your return. The void that swallows light thanks you for finally revealing yourself. Shadows surged forward, but silver flames met darkness. The collision shook the entire sanctum. Through their bond, Lyra felt Chaol's determination as he rose, his shadow magic joining with her light. Their power synchronized complementary opposites in perfect harmony. Banished, they said in unison. Their joined power exploded outward like sunrise burning away night. The shadows shrieked, tearing from Daemon's body, compressed smaller and smaller until it vanished with a sound like reality tearing. Daemon collapsed, blood running from his eyes and nose. Chaol caught him before he hit the ground. The possession. The months ago. Whispers promising the throne. I'm sorry, Chaol. The prophecy spoke true, the elder Alpha said with awe. But if that was just a fragment of the true enemy, then we have a war coming, Chaol said grimly, looking at Lyra. A war I can't fight without you. By the third night after the council confrontation, Lyra hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, visions came, armies of shadow pouring from tears in reality, kingdoms burning, wolves screaming, and always, her own reflection with silver eyes that weren't quite her own, smiling as the world ended. You need rest, Chaol said from her doorway in the palace. I can't. She stood at the window, watching storm clouds gather unnaturally on the horizon. Every time I sleep, I see things, terrible things, and I think they're not dreams. They're possibilities. The gift of sight, he said quietly, moving to stand beside her. Your mother had it too, according to the histories. The ability to see potential futures. It's driving me mad. How did she stand it? Maybe that's why she bound your powers. To give you a normal life, free from the burden of knowing what might come. Lyra turned to face him, and for a moment, the careful distance they'd maintained since arriving at the palace wavered. Do you regret it? That I claimed you? Do you? He countered. I asked first. Kale's storm-gray eyes studied her face. I've been alone a long time, Lyra. By choice. Being king means everyone wants something from you. Power, favor, alliance. But you, he laughed softly. You just wanted to survive. You didn't even know who I was. And now? Now I can't imagine facing what's coming without you. His hand rose to cup her cheek, and the bond marks on both their wrists flared with silver light, which terrifies me more than any ancient enemy. A knock interrupted them. Your Majesties, Lord Damon insists on speaking with you. It's urgent. They found Damon in the healing chambers, gaunt, but clear-eyed. I owe you both an apology and a warning, he said. The void left memories. It's not one entity but a species, dwelling in the realm between realms, sleeping since the first wolves bound them. The barriers are weakening. How do we stop them? The lunar conjunction, when our moon shows all its faces at once, cycling through every phase in a single night. It happens once every 1,000 years. Tomorrow night. Silence fell like a stone. That's impossible. A ritual that complex would take months to prepare. Unless you have silver moon blood, who can see fate's threads and weave them. Damon looked at Lyra. Your mother knew this day would come. That's why she made sure you'd be of age when the conjunction arrived. But I don't know any rituals. The throne knows. But accessing those memories could overwhelm you. The Silver Moon Queens who used their full power didn't always stay human. Sometimes they became living conduits for magic itself, powerful, but no longer capable of things like love or mercy. Thunder rumbled outside, and Lyra noticed the storm clouds were moving in impossible spirals. It's already starting, Damon whispered. They rushed to the battlements. The storm wasn't weather, it was shadows, creatures of living darkness attacking the palace barriers. With each impact, the barriers flickered. How long will the defenses hold? Hours, maybe less. Lyra stared at the writhing mass. Prepare the throne room. Gather every mage and priestess in the palace. If we're doing this ritual, we do it right. I won't let you face this alone, Kale said. I know. She took his hand. You're my anchor. If I start losing myself to the power, you're the only one who can pull me back. The eastern wall exploded. Shadows poured through like nightmares. Guards shifted to wolf form, but their fangs and claws passed right through the creatures. Only Lyra's lunar fire and Kale's shadow magic affected them. Give us the Silver Moon Child. Give us the Shadow King, the creatures spoke in unison. They ran to the throne room where mages chanted desperately, barely holding shadows back. Whatever you're going to do, do it now, the head mage gasped. Lyra approached the throne, her heart hammering. The moment she sat down, she'd be opening herself to centuries of power and knowledge. She might emerge as their savior or as something that no longer remembered how to be human. She looked back at Kale one last time. If I don't come back, you will, he said firmly. I won't let you go. Lyra sat on the throne. Power hit her like a tsunami. 1,000 years of memory flooded Lyra's mind. She was everywhere, a Silver Moon Queen leading armies against the first Void incursion, a child learning to shape moonlight into weapons, a mother singing the binding spell that would cost her life. She was all of them and none of them, drowning in an ocean of memories and magic. Let go, the voices of her ancestors whispered seductively. Stop being Lyra, become the Silver Moon itself. It's the only way to have enough power. It would be so easy. She could feel the temptation to dissolve into pure magic, become a force of nature that could obliterate the void with a thought. No more fear, no more doubt, no more messy human emotions. But then she felt it, a thread of shadow wrapped around her heart, warm and familiar. Kale. Their bond pulsed with his desperate determination, his absolute refusal to let her drift away. Lyra. His voice in her mind, not through ears but through soul. I know you're in there. Fight. She tried to respond, but she was fragmenting, spreading thin across time and space. She saw the ritual her ancestors had used complex, beautiful, requiring 12 wolves of royal blood. But they only had 2. It was impossible. No, another voice said, and Lyra realized it was her own, from a future that might be. Not impossible, just different. The vision shifted. She saw herself standing with Kale under the moon's changing faces, but they weren't alone. Every wolf in the kingdom stood with them, their combined howls creating a harmony that could reshape reality. Not 12 royal wolves, but thousands of common ones, united by choice rather than blood. That's it, she gasped, pulling herself back from the brink of dissolution. Lyra's eyes snapped open, still seated on the throne but herself again mostly. Silver light poured from her skin, and she could feel every thread of magic in the kingdom. Kale, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made reality shiver. I need you to call them. Call who? Everyone. Every wolf in the kingdom. Farmers, merchants, nobles, servants, everyone. She stood, the throne's power following her like a cloak of starlight. The original ritual needed 12 royal wolves because they were the only ones considered worthy. But worthiness isn't about blood. There's no time. There is. She could see the threads of possibility, one shining path to victory. Send the king's call. Tell them their queen asks for their help. Their choice. Their voices. Kale didn't hesitate. He threw his head back and howled. Not just any howl, but the king's call. A sound that carried on magical winds to every corner of the kingdom. For a moment, nothing. Then answering howls began to rise. 1, 10, hundreds, thousands. Wolves were coming, streaming toward the palace despite the danger. The void creatures shrieked their fury, redoubling their assault. The barriers shattered completely. But Lyra raised her hand, and moonlight flames erupted in a protective dome. Hold on, she told the mages. They're coming. Through the windows, she could see them wolves of every color and size racing through the streets, some shifting mid-run from human form. Common folk who'd never set foot in the palace, all answering the call. You delay the inevitable, the void ground out. We are eternal. We are hungry, Lyra interrupted. You're hungry because you're incomplete. Shadows without light, darkness without substance. That's why you need us. We're what you can never be. The first of the common wolves burst through the throne room doors, immediately adding their voices to a growing howl. More followed, filling the room, the hallways, the courtyards. The harmony grew stronger with each voice. But here's what you never understood, Lyra continued, walking toward the mass of shadows. Kyle moved with her, their hands clasped, bond marks blazing. Light and dark aren't opposites, they're partners. One defines the other. She reached the edge of her silver fire dome. You're not our enemy. You're our reflection, corrupted by eons of separation in the realm between realms. The first wolves didn't understand that binding you away would only make you hungrier, angrier. Lyra, Kale said warningly, what are you doing? Something crazy. She looked at him, and despite the power coursing through her, her smile was entirely human. Trust me? Always. She dropped the dome. Shadows rushed in, but instead of attacking, Lyra opened her arms wide. Silver light poured from her, not as a weapon but as an invitation. Kale, understanding through their bond, did the same with his shadow magic. We don't need to bind you, Lyra said to the void. We need to heal you. Light and shadow, together again. The void recoiled, then surged forward, drawn despite itself. Where it touched their combined magic, something extraordinary happened. The hungry darkness began to change, taking on form and substance. The conjunction! Someone shouted. Above them, the moon began cycling through all its phases, full to crescent to new and back again, showing every face in moments. The howling of thousands of wolves reached a crescendo that shook the very foundations of reality. Not shadow and silver united to destroy, but shadow and silver united to restore. She pulled on every thread of magic she could reach from the throne, from the moon, from every wolf lending their voice. Kyle's darkness wove through her light, creating something new, something whole. The void screamed not in pain, but in recognition. The endless hunger that had defined it for millennia began to ease. Form emerged from formlessness. The crushing mass of shadows condensed, shifted, changed. Where the void had been, beings of living shadow and silver light now stood beautiful and terrible and free. The first shadows returned to their original forms before the ancient breaking. One stepped forward, larger than the rest, its eyes swirling with galaxies. The little moon child found the answer the first wolves could not. It spoke, its voice no longer grinding stone but flowing water. Unity, not division. Healing, not binding. Will you keep the peace? Lyra asked, exhaustion suddenly crashing over her. We will return to the realm between realms, but no longer as prisoners. As guardians, watching the boundaries between worlds. It looked at the assembled wolves. You have given us back ourselves. This debt will not be forgotten. The first shadows began to fade, not vanishing but transitioning to a different plane of existence. As the last one disappeared, Lyra's knees buckled. Kale caught her before she fell, pulling her against his chest. Around them, thousands of wolves still filled the palace, their eyes wide with awe. Did we just? Lyra started. Save the world? Yes. Kale's voice was rough, with emotion. Nearly lose yourself to do it? Also yes. But I didn't, she said, looking up at him. You anchored me, just like I knew you would. The elder Alpha approached through the crowd. The prophecy is fulfilled. Shadow and silver, united not in marriage or politics, but in choice and sacrifice. The lost heir has returned, and she has shown us a new way. So what happens now? Someone called from the crowd. Now, Lyra said, her voice carrying despite her exhaustion. We rebuild, not 12 separate kingdoms, but one united realm. No more hierarchies based on bloodline alone. Tonight proved every wolf has value, every voice matters. Still, one thing unfinished, the elder Alpha said with a knowing smile. Your claiming bond remains incomplete without the mutual bite. Heat rose in Lyra's cheeks. In all the chaos, she'd forgotten. I've almost lost you 3 times in as many days, Kale said, turning her to face him fully. I won't risk a 4th. Lyra silenced him with a kiss. Real, warm, chosen. Not the desperate kiss from the ceremony, but something true. The crowd cheered. Is that a yes? Yes, though maybe without thousands watching. Later, in private, they completed their bond properly. The mutual claiming bites were gentle despite their primal nature, and when done, their bond hummed with perfect harmony. I love you, Lyra whispered against his throat. And I love you, Kale replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. My brilliant, impossible mate. Outside, dawn broke over a changed world. The void healed, kingdoms united, and 2 souls who'd found each other by desperate chance had chosen to stay together by deliberate choice. The girl who'd grabbed a stranger to escape her fate had grabbed hold of destiny itself and reshaped it. Sometimes the most desperate choices lead to the most extraordinary destinies.